Surprising offer from Poland to the U.S. that no one ever thought about. They propose to U.S. that will provide the Ukrainians with MiG fighter jets. It is a significant move in the Russia-Ukraine war. However, both U.S. President Biden and the Pentagon have turned it down, and both the U.S. President and the Pentagon have called it untenable. But why did the U.S. do so? Is this decision justifiable? Welcome to Warzone. If you don't want to miss out on any new political news, conflicts, battles, or anything else related to politics, then subscribe to our channel and hit the bell button so that you will always be notified. Poland's offer to send MiG-29 fighter planes to Ukraine via a U.S. airfield in Germany was rejected by the U.S., which said the idea presented severe concerns for the whole NATO alliance. Warsaw made the surprising offer on Tuesday in response to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy's repeated requests for additional jets to help his nation fight against invading Russian soldiers. The Russian-made MiG-29 fighter planes would be sent to a U.S. base in Ramstein, Germany, and then deployed to Ukraine, according to the Polish plan. President Biden noted that it was unsustainable because Poland had shocked the U.S. by seeking to fly them to the U.S. airport in Ramstein, Germany, which is a NATO territory. The fear is that if those MiG-29s went into Ukraine from what is effectively a NATO airport, the Russians would see it as a NATO threat, as NATO becoming involved in the conflict. And NATO is adamant about staying out of the conflict, unless, of course, Russia invaded it. As a result, it appears that the concept has been categorically rejected at this time. Similarly, Pentagon spokesman John Kirby said the possibility of the fighters traveling into disputed airspace with Russia over Ukraine raises severe concerns for the whole NATO alliance. We will continue to talk with Poland and our other NATO partners about this matter and the tremendous logistical issues it poses, Kirby said in a statement. However, we do not believe Poland's plan is tenable. He went on to say, "It is simply not obvious for us that there is a meaningful basis for it." Of course, Vice President Kamala Harris spoke with the Polish about the proposal, and she is keeping an eye on whether there is another plan in the works, such as getting the MiG-29 into Ukraine and assisting the Ukrainians in using them to become more dominant. However, getting them into Ukraine currently appears to be a roadblock. Then there's the matter of how they'd get them in if they weren't from a NATO country. Well, it's possible that the concept was one of the first ones to come up with. It was that Ukraine pilots would travel to Poland to pick them up and fly them in, Biden explained. That might be troublesome enough, but flying from a U.S. base may send out a message that Putin may find tough to stomach. Since the conflict began on February 24, a major portion of Ukraine's air force has remained intact, although both Ukraine and Russia have suffered considerable losses, and none controls the airspace over the nation. Ukraine's Air Force fleet comprises of aging MiG-29 and Sukhoi 27 fighters from the Soviet era, as well as the heavier Sukhoi 25 jets, which are the only planes Ukrainian pilots can fly right away without extra training. While Ukraine has increased its demands for Western allies to equip it with military airplanes, supplying Kyiv with warplanes carries significant dangers. Supporting Ukraine's Air Force would be perceived as partaking in the conflict in Moscow's eyes, exposing supplies to possible reprisal. NATO has stated that it does not want to engage in direct conflict with Moscow, a fellow nuclear-armed power, and U.S. President Joe Biden has ruled out sending American troops into Ukraine to fight, a decision that the Pentagon has stated would apply to troops on the ground as well as troops flying missions in the air. Following the announcement of Poland's offer, Biden informed U.S. lawmakers that the U.S. had been taken off guard. At a Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing, Biden stated, "To my knowledge, it was not pre-consulted with us that they meant to provide us these planes. I believe that was a surprise action by Poland." While numerous lawmakers called for the planes to be flown to Ukraine as soon as possible, Biden declined to commit the U.S. to support or facilitate the swap. "I will continue to transmit this committee's very strong bipartisan position that these planes must travel to Ukraine," he told the committee. "There are other variables to consider here, and there are some divergent viewpoints among allies and even within the government." Earlier on Tuesday, British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace stated that if Poland gave up the planes, his nation would stand behind it, warning that it may suffer direct consequences as a result of its choice. "As a result, we'll safeguard Poland and assist them with anything they require," Wallace stated on Sky News. Any decision regarding deploying offensive weapons, according to Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, must be taken unanimously by NATO countries. "This is why we can provide Ramstein our entire fleet of jet fighters," he explained, "but we are not prepared to undertake any unilateral steps since we are not a party to this conflict." The North Atlantic Treaty Organization dispatched F-35B Lightning planes to Amari Airport in Estonia on Wednesday to perform air policing of NATO airspace as the Russia-Ukraine war entered its second week. This comes as Russia's aggression in Ukraine continues and NATO aims to reinforce and protect its eastern flank even further. Apart from Joe Biden, the European Union imposed further sanctions against Russia and Belarus on Wednesday, targeting Russian officials, billionaires, their family members, and the marine industry as Western nations continue to work out strategies to target Russia's economy. 3 Belarus banks will be cut off from the SWIFT financial messaging system as a result of the restrictions. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine released data of Russia's losses since the invasion of Ukraine began, claiming that more than 12,000 Russian servicemen had been killed too far. During the battle, 1,070 armored vehicles of various types, 49 aircraft, 81 helicopters, 317 tanks, 120 artillery pieces, and 56 MLRs were hit, according to Ukrainian MFA figures released on Wednesday. 60 cisterns, 482 vehicles, 3 warships, 7 unmanned aerial vehicles, and 28 Russian anti-aircraft warfare systems are among the damaged structures. Furthermore, 90% of Ukraine's military aerodromes, which house the majority of the country's air force, have been shut down, according to Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov. He went on to say that a portion of Ukraine's aircraft force had flown to Romania and was not involved in any battle. The Ukrainian Air Force had as many as 250 operable combat aircraft and helicopters at the commencement of the special operation. On the ground and in the air, Russia's aerospace forces have destroyed 89 combat planes and 57 helicopters, Konashenkov said in a briefing. Russia missed a session at the International Court of Justice that was hearing Ukraine's complaint about Russia's crime of genocide in the current war, calling the claim absurd. In addition, U.S. President Joe Biden slammed Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday for undermining global peace and stability amid the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. From the White House, Biden stated that it is vital to reply to Putin because the price of freedom will be much higher tomorrow. As Ukraine's neighbors step up to assist refugees fleeing the war-torn nation, India's second batch of humanitarian supplies to Ukraine landed in Romania on Wednesday by IAF aircraft and will be transferred to Ukraine. Second batch of humanitarian supplies from India to Ukraine, which landed in Bucharest today by IAF flight, handed over to Romanian authorities for onward transmission to Ukraine, the Indian embassy in Romania posted on Twitter. Sviatoslav Yurash, Ukraine's youngest member of parliament, acknowledged a strategic connection between India and Russia, but said that in light of the Ukraine situation, India has to reevaluate its stance on Moscow. In response to occurrences like this, the U.S. military declared that it will deploy 2 Patriot missile batteries to Poland to prevent any possible danger to the U.S. and allied soldiers and NATO territory. This is truly part of NATO's attempt to strengthen up defenses across the alliance to be ready if the Russians make a move to step across a NATO border with missiles, planes, or any other form of a military strike against NATO. In a statement released, the Pentagon said flatly that this defensive deployment is being carried out proactively to confront any possible threat to U.S. and coalition soldiers as well as NATO territory. So it's not about launching offensive activities, according to Biden, it's about being apprehensive about Russia's next move. It's a fear that may prompt you to act, and we're seeing these defenses bolstered all over the world, with the U.S. sending an additional 15,000 troops to Europe, as well as Army Command and Control Centers for ground forces, just in case an air support operation to assist in air operation. Just in case, he said, this is what the U.S. military does, and also NATO does as well. Alright everyone, this brings us to the end of our video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Until then, take care and we will be back with another video.